Everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us for another conversation that I and Sachin have on a weekly basis. Um, Today we are going to talk about something very interesting with respect to childhood patterns and deeper emotional issues. But before we go ahead, welcome Sachin. Thank you for joining us for this particular interaction.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me as always, Nitin. Seems
And
like interesting conversation today as well.
yeah, I know. So if you could just quickly begin with your introductions first, and then we can take this forward from here.
All right. So my name is Sachin Chitambaran. I'm someone who's been working in the space of mental health and suicide prevention for over 15 years. Predominantly, my work experience comes from on-ground work with people dealing with emotional distress, despair, or even suicidal thoughts. I'm I am running a suicide prevention helpline along with my co-founder Sunita Ramchandran called Ankahi, which is running every day from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. and is free of cost, available for anyone, like I mentioned, is dealing with any sort of distress, despair, or suicidal thoughts. In addition to this, I'm also the founder and lead trainer with the Connect Hut. It's a mental health organization focused on making mental health simple and accessible to everyone, where our aim is to take mental health out of the world of jargons and to make it more accessible to the layman so that they are not just able to look at it as a theory, but be able to actually engage with their own mental health and take decisions and take actions that can actually impact their own mental health with the right knowledge. So this is our work, and we have our own counseling space as well, where we offer affordable counseling to anyone dealing with suicidal ideation as well. That includes anyone dealing with suicidal ideation as well. So we are an online organization, so anyone can reach out to us at theconnecthut.com.
Super, perfect. And we are on the ICHARS channel. If you are here, I'm more or less certain that you already know who I am. I am Nitin Shah. I'm the CEO of ICHARS, Meet Goals. And uh, if you want to know more about me, you can just check out the ICHARS website. And I'm sure there's enough detail and more that's available about me over there. Uh, Today, we have an interesting conversation because as someone who mentors practitioners, who has been guiding, supporting practitioners, one of the challenge that I hear a lot of practitioners having is this, that how important is really working with past childhood issues, and do they really impact our present? If they do, why do they impact it? And can therapy really help people address the childhood impact? मतलब तो हो गया ना वो तो. So all this and more is what we are going to discuss today. So Sachin, how would you like to start?
So, I mean, first off, I just felt like laughing when someone must have said, I don't know how you responded, but when someone said, the things that happened with me in the childhood, do they have any part to play in my present life? So that just made me giggle. But okay, so I'll kind of Nitin, like with the theme that we follow in terms of making people understand mental health, where we first start with giving people the concept of the mind itself. I feel like if you do not have concept of mind clear, where usually people understand mind to be brain or heart or soul, these three tend to be the answer. If you are too educated, the answer becomes brain, and if you are religiously oriented, it is the soul, and if Bollywood is your inspiration, then it becomes the heart. Now, if our understanding of a concept of mind itself isn't there, like when so we tend to ask people, like, if you're studying psychology, are you studying the heart, the brain, or the soul? And they're like, neither of that. So obviously we are not talking about, like, I understand the implication of the brain and all of those things, none taken away. However, if we have to get really close to the concept of mind itself, what do we mean? There is something known as the mind, and guess what? If this commodity, as intangible as it may be, if it exists, then it is prone to disrepair, dysregulation. It is prone to injuries. It is prone to pain. It is prone to pleasure. Like, so, whatever we encapsulate as a human experience, the mind and its experience has a very big role to play. Now, if you understand that is a very big role to play, then this becomes why this becomes a silly question, because our mind, just like our body, is impacted right from childhood. In fact, furthermore, in the womb as well. And anything, so when we explain mental health itself and what happens when childhood traumas happen, so we have to explain that causes of mental health issues, in which, other than your body, your brain, or things that may happen to your body, your brain, things that may happen socially around you, what happens as experiences, as traumas to your early childhood, has an extremely important part to play in what we term as mental health issues, right? And even if it is not an issue, it still plays a very important part in your day to day life. Even if you are not perceiving any issues in your present day life, it is extremely important to understand our early childhood experiences kind of lay the foundational work of how we perceive life. And anything that we may experience, and not just even trauma for that matter, whatever lessons we learn, beliefs we build, all of these things, I like to think of them beliefs that we form as trauma through practice, uh, and where we come up and understand. So this is where I like to kind of start the conversation with, and then we can look at maybe introducing trauma, or what it looks like. And we have a very simple way of addressing or acknowledging it, and maybe we can look into those. What are your thoughts, Nitin?
Super perfect. So, okay, so let's begin with the basics first. How would you define childhood trauma or childhood patterns? Okay, so let's begin with childhood patterns first. How would you define childhood patterns? And when you spoke about the mind, how would you capture the essence of what mind is?
I mean, I think this is coming from the training itself, like, and this is part of my basics of mental health training. If it works at a high level like this, it is extremely useful at the layman level as well. And I say layman with all due respect, anyone who has not come across mental health as a subject, even out of interest, then you are in the layman category, because it's an area that you do not have an exposure for. So that is how I'm categorizing layman as well. But the concept of mind as a hardware and software, I feel I will be I don't are you there? I feel like I've lost you.
I'm there,
Yes.
I'm there,
So
I
the
can
hardware,
hear
yes, the hardware and the software analogy, I think you are the best in terms of explaining the same, but I'll make a small attempt. If just as we consider the mobile phone, if we have a mobile phone and we consider the body of the mobile phone as a hardware, we understand that there is something in the mobile phone called as the software. Let's call it the operating system, right? It can be Android or iOS or whatnot. Now, in the similar fashion, if this body of mine is the hardware, then what we are referring to as mind, that mind is the software we are talking about. We are not talking about the brain or the processor. We are not talking about the UI, the user interface that brings light and all of those things, the heart. We are not talking about that. Neither are we talking about the electricity that is running the whole show, right? We are talking about this intangible element, but still it exists. We are able to see that software errors exist. So in that simple analogy, we are able to notice that mind is what we can consider as the human operating system, HOS. And to take this analogy further, Nitin, I take this one step further to help people understand what is poor mental health, or even trauma for that matter, what the question that you asked there. Just like our body is made up of tissues, muscles, bone, blood, organs, all of these things make up our body. And when we refer to as the physical health is poor, what we are essentially talking about is there is some problem either, or there is some pain in either the bone or the flesh or the muscle or the tissue, or one of these areas, one or more of these areas, there is some pain. This is when I say when my physical health is poor. So in the
correct.
same fashion, if we have to understand mental health and mental health being poor or good or bad, right? what we have to understand is this: what is this software made up of? For us human beings, this software has two components. One is thoughts, that is like the coding of your software. The thoughts, the language that you develop, essentially helps in becoming the coding. And the user interface, how we see, experience the software as, we call them feelings, right? So when we say our mental health is poor, what are we saying? There is pain in our thoughts and feelings, right? That there is some error in our thoughts. That's how we would consider a software error. There is some error in our thought. What that now we can talk about what that error can look like, but I've just used your analogy itself to kind of understand that when there is an error in the software, the situation that may have happened is a traumatic situation,
Okay.
right?
All right. Super. So let me take this a bit forward, right? So we spoke about the thoughts and the feelings and how they can be pain and thoughts and feelings. Now, the way I would explore that model of mind a bit more would also be to look at where am I experiencing those thoughts and feelings and where are they really coming from, right? Which then brings us to this unique, interesting model called theory of mind or model of mind that breaks your mind itself into three components, which becomes your conscious mind, your critical filter, and your subconscious slash unconscious, pick the word that you prefer more. Um, Most of the times, when I'm experiencing the thought and the emotion, I may experience it at the level of my conscious mind. Because I'm consciously aware of that pain, I'm consciously aware of the thought, or at least the impact of the thought and of the emotion. But it's not a thought or an emotion that I'm generating consciously. मतलब ऐसा नहीं होता था look at someone and this अच्छा इसको देख के तो अभी गुस्सा दिलाना पड़ेगा अपने आप को वो देखते हो गुस्सा अपने आप आता है so while I may be feeling that gussa in my conscious mind the actual creation of the gussa or the source of the gussa is not really in the conscious mind. It's really coming from somewhere else which I'm consciously not able to control. And that's where the unconscious comes into play. And then the interface between the conscious and unconscious decides what information goes from the conscious to the unconscious, literally like the gatekeeper. That becomes what we call as now the critical filter. Now, why this model is important to understand, especially in the context of childhood patterns, because when I hear this question from people saying that do childhood patterns really impact us? तो हो गया ना अभी. So what they don't realize is वो हो गया, but वो होके चला नहीं गया, वो होके आपके unconscious में stored है.
Now
Now,
this go on, go on.
now because it's stored over there, it is still influencing everything that's happening in your life because eventually that's the source from where that information is coming to you for. It's literally in the computer system. You may say कि किसने वायरस अटैक किया था अब मैंने फायरवॉल ऐड कर दिया राइट तब वो वायरस अटैक का तो पर्पस खत्म हो गया वो वक्त तक खत्म नहीं हुआ जब तक वो हार्ड डिस्क पे स्टोर्ड है if it's there in the hard disk then even if you have added a firewall on top of it what's happening inside is still being influenced by that virus which is there on your PC.
Great.
So you need to be able to work with that virus inside and then probably also work with a firewall that you need to address. Sachin,
तो
about it.
तो ये वाला जो चीज है ना, तो what I've observed ना, ये this particular part people kind of tend to get lost. See, you gave the three part understanding theory of mind, right? Now what I have observed is ना, यहाँ पे ना लोग थोड़े से हल्के से lost हो रहे हैं. So what I did was I took the same example, the previous example itself, जो software का है, and we said that said that coding जो है वो thoughts है and UI is the feelings. Now what you have shared in terms of वो virus आ गया है. For us, another way to kind of look at it can also be that बचपन में anything that may happen to me as that traumatic situation or whatever. Like for example, I may have had an accident. ठीक है, बाइक एक्सीडेंट हुआ. Not like I was a small kid. चलो थोड़ा बड़ा था मैं. I had an accident. Now, accident happened. It took me 1 month to get better. And after that 1 month, when I went to take the bike keys, suddenly a thought आया, right? Because and this people are Sachin डर लग गया आपको. You got scared. I'm like brilliant. You already know what has happened, right? But if we break down using that previous analogy itself, software. What has happened in the software? Sachin, suddenly a thought came. What was that thought? You will fall down again. Right? You will fall down again. In fact, the thought didn't stay there. The thought came in as you will fall down again. In fact, another accident, bigger accident will happen. You will die. Your mother will cry, and your wife will cry, and da da da. You have reached the worst case scenario as well. Now, what this means is essentially what happened when you had the bike accident. You received an injury on your body, definitely, which took time, 1 month to heal. But what we are unable to see is there was an injury made on this software. But what does this injury look like? What do we experience it as? A thought becomes a belief. This is what a software error can, in simple words, look like. When I had the accident, before the accident, I never thought I would have an accident. It was like an impossible thing for me to even imagine. I can have an accident, but who's seen it? Da, 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 da. I work on that probability and whatnot principles. But after the accident, now that has changed, inverted almost. And now it is like every time I have to think about it, I have a belief. A thought became a belief. Now this thought turning into a belief, which is, मैं गिरूंगा, I will fall down. This thought is what became a belief, is what, Nitin, what you were trying to explain from an unconscious point of view, the virus for me. This is the virus. This thought or this belief that tells you you are going to fall. But now this belief, why are we calling it that it has become part of the unconscious? Because consciously you're not able to stop the corresponding fear that is associated with this. So what is happening whenever a traumatic situation, and what is a traumatic situation? Any situation that you did not have exposure to, experience to, or skills to deal with it. You do not have the exposure, experience, skills, and the muscle memory to kind of work through it. If you are faced with such a situation, your body will give you the energy to deal with it. Unfortunately, your body does not have the muscle memory. Your mind doesn't have the memory or the know-how on how to deal with that. This causes an injury. This injury we experience on our mind as a thought becoming a belief and an emotion getting stuck. In Hindi, we simply say, Sachin, dar baith gaya hai. It is, I feel, clinically accurate in terms of what we are talking about in terms of the virus. डर बैठ गया है. हाँ, डर कैसे बैठा है हमें सबको पता है. ये डर ऐसे बैठना है तो दूध का जला छाछ भी फूक के पीता है. वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट अ ट्रॉमा रिस्पॉन्स, है कि नहीं? एंड if we have to then essentially work on it, obviously we can look into all those things. But I felt when we had this kind of a discussion, they were able to like, हाँ, thought डर बैठ सकता है. Then the second more relevant question becomes is अगर डर बैठ सकता है तो क्या गुस्सा बैठ सकता है, क्या मायूसी बैठ सकती है ना? तो जब भी हमने ऐसे एक्सप्लोर किया, आई मीन इट इज आल्सो काइंड ऑफ हेल्पिंग अस experientially see how this may how we experience trauma as.
Okay. So I hope all of you are watching us, listening to us, have understood this part of it, that whichever model you want to understand the mind from, experiences have a tendency to settle down in our mind. And those experiences connected with certain emotions, when they settle down in our mind, while you may over a period of time forget the experience, the emotion connected to it still plays an important role in the background. And that important role is what influences our life on an ongoing basis. Now, this experience plus emotion may happen today and it will influence you tomorrow, may have happened a week back and is influencing your life today, may have happened when you were a 6-year-old child and has influenced your life today, may have happened when you were a 1 day old child, and maybe even when you were in your mother's womb. So, all of those experiences that are taking shape in your life, that are settling down in your mind, those experiences, especially when they happen over a period of time in a repetitive manner, become childhood patterns. And those childhood patterns influence our life. Now, there are two primary components to those childhood patterns. One is repetition, and second is the intensity of the emotion. So, sometimes you may have an experience which was not emotionally very charged, but it just happened so many times repetitively that the cumulative effect of it is very high. And in other places, you may have had a one time experience which has never happened earlier, will probably never get repeated again. But it leaves a big impact on you. So, the example that Sachin spoke about in terms of an accident. Maybe earlier you were a good driver, you have been a good driver, you've not met with an accident, you've driven your vehicle effectively for all these years. And then one day you met with an accident, but the accident was a very, very intense accident. Maybe you or someone else literally reached the stage where you felt those either you or that person would be lost. The emotional impact of it is very high. Now, even if both of you completely recover, that impact is remain, and it's not a repetitive accident; it's a one-time accident. But the intensity of the emotion just influences how it runs your life. So, I hope till here we are good to go. Sachin, anything that you want to add to
And
this?
I just one more thing, because uh, our aim should not be to try and avoid trauma. Obviously, like if you're going to see an accident is about to happen, you avoid that. Yes, sure. But when trauma happens, essentially, please understand that, another way to look at it is when you are going to learn any martial art, right? You're trying to learn karate or whatever. Day one, if you were to deal with imagine if you have not done any martial art work and there a robber comes in front of you, right? And they threaten you with a knife or whatever. What will that experience be for you as a person? Can that be a highly emotionally charged experience for you, right? Yes. Now, the point is, imagine if you were a karate black belt with a lot of combat experience. And now imagine a robber had approached you. The point is, emotionally, you will get the same charge to because your body, your mind has experienced a high level threat in front of you. Your body mind will provide you the necessary energy to deal with that. The point is, if you're a karate black belt, you will have enough muscle memory, combat memory in you to deal with the situation accordingly, and that will not make you overwhelmed with that emotional energy that you're essentially the charge that you get at that time, because you have built up your experience to reach karate's black belt and combat level at that high stage. Even a high emotional charge that there is a robber in front of you may not make you freeze. It may not traumatize you to a point. For example, if you were a white belt and this were the situation, if that makes sense. So what we have to also understand is it's not something that you have to generally avoid in life. What you can do is you can plan, you can actually work towards preparing yourself to deal with such and other possible traumatic situations that one may experience.
So I would actually put it a bit differently, Sachin, because when we say it this way, it almost feels like I need to experience smaller trauma so that I can deal with bigger trauma, which is not probably what we are trying to say right now. So the idea is, like Sachin mentioned about, le- if you don't know how to fight, okay, we are talking about going and learning how to fight. That learning how to fight is happening in relatively safe environment. When I say safe environment, means there's someone who's there to teach you, who's there to take care of the fact that there's an X amount of conflict that you go to, you learn to manage that before you go to the next level, before you go to the next level.
Exactly.
The idea is not to go and find someone to fight.
Right.
So that धीरे धीरे जगह जगह के I will learn.
That's why I'm
हाँ,
mentioning white belt to black belt with karate or whatever. A professional, someone who knows what they are doing, right?
correct. So in the context of mental health, what we are saying is it's important for you to start building your skill sets, your ability to manage your thoughts and your emotions, your resilience today while your life may already be good. So that when the time comes, you're already in a far better state, far prepared state to not get affected by what's happening around you.
Exactly.
Right? But if you're already in a state where you're in a crisis situation and you don't know how to deal with it, even then there's help available so that you can go and they can then help you develop that resilience to first cope up with what's happening in your life today, what may have happened in your life in the past, and which will all together also help you in living a better life going forward in future.
Exactly.
Perfect. So Sachin, moving forward, yeah. So can we look at some examples of how childhood patterns will influence our present and our future?
Sure. I think it's not like necessarily a pattern, but I guess when I share it like a story, it may you may be able to see a pattern, right? So one example I tend to give people is about when I was 5 years old. My the favorite human being for me at that point of time, my Nanaji, he passed away. Right now, as a 5 year old, do I understand what dying is? No, I don't understand what dying is. Right, but I'm a very curious child. So what do? I'll ask the people. Who will I ask most? My mother, because she's always available. Now consider what is happening. She has lost her father, and now there is a extremely curious and naggy child who will not let you go without an answer, asking you, where is Nanaji? Now you're not in a position to explain life and death. What do? Find a simpler way to kind of quench the child's curiosity. You may end up saying what my mother said, which is, Nanaji has gone to heaven, beta. Right? Now, curious child, you added one more concept to him. Heaven? What is heaven, mama? Heaven, beta, is a good place. Like, good place? What do you mean? Are there a lot of kids there? Because for me, good place means a lot of kids are there and you are able to have fun. She's like, yeah, point is there. There is logic. There should be kids. So she said, yes, there are a lot of kids there. I'm like, is Nanaji playing with them? She's like, yes, Nanaji is playing with them. Then obviously my next question, why didn't Nanaji take me? He didn't even tell me he's going to such a good place. Otherwise, he takes me everywhere. Why didn't he take me, ma? Now again, an ethical conundrum my mother is facing, but she's also irritated with me now. So she explained it in the best way she could. She was, तू मस्ती करता है ना, तू बैड बॉय है ना, इसलिए गए. He left because you have been a bad boy. Now, the challenge is, as a 5 year old, do I know even what is good and bad? One day you shout at me for doing something, this next day you praise me for doing that same thing. I am not able to see contextually those were different places where I did what I did. So now consider this, what I'm seeing everywhere around me. Everyone is upset and sad. Everyone looks down and miserable and crying and screaming. Every second person who comes in, there's a big loud noise of, crying and screaming that is happening. And afterwards, and I'm also searching for Nanaji. So I think everyone has come home because everyone is upset with me, because I am the reason why Nanaji left. Now, the challenge that I faced over here is when I ask people, would you say there was trauma here? What I experienced, that I am the reason why Nanaji left. I am a bad boy. Right? Now, was there trauma here? Is that as per our definition high emotional this thing? Did I have exposure, skill, or experience of it? Nothing. What I experienced this emotional overwhelmness as was traumatic. But now when we say trauma is there, that means a thought has got stuck and an emotion has got stuck. Now the thought that got stuck here was, I am a bad boy. And what happens to bad boys? The person they love the most leaves them. This was an understanding or conclusion I took away from the identity that I developed, which was I am a bad boy and people will leave me. No matter the ones who love me the most, they will leave me. Now, if this has become my belief, one thought has become a belief, this has become my belief, people I love will leave me, then will I ever be able to find love? Because the moment I start feeling attraction to someone, she'll leave me. Right? And
So both. One can be she will leave me, and second can be in my attempt to be too good so that she doesn't leave me, I may become so suffocating that she still eventually leaves me.
yep,
And third, even if I am not at the fault and my partner is being mean to me, my partner is probably not the right partner for me. No matter what she does, I will keep internalizing it as, yeah, I am the bad one.
right? And or one more, if she has any male friend, if she were to go out and meet any friends, what did Nanaji do to me? Nanaji left me to play with other kids. What is she going to do? She is going to leave me to play with other men. Now, this we will define them as a typical insecure Indian man. There is a label like this. But are we able to see that what is causing? Is the person trying to be insecure or is the person having a real high anxiety that has got stuck here? And is there, would we, now if this is what I have experienced, I may experience it even in my workplace. Anyone I love or respect, my boss, can that person fall in that category? Can I find him to be like a mentor? If I find him to be like a mentor, will I always be now under the fear that my mentor is going to choose someone else, my colleague, as a better employee? Is the person going to be nicer to others, or will I become allow them to be more abusive to me just to placate them, to just to please them? So this is what we are, I believe, referring to as patterns that will develop in other parts. A belief becomes something that gets part or distributed in other parts of my life as well. And this is how a traumatic injury, a very simplistic example, but a traumatic injury can develop into a belief that as a consequence can impact other parts of my life. And will I say the fights that I'm having with my wife on a daily basis, is it because of me? Is it because my wife is bad? Or is it because of this injury that I'm carrying?
Perfect. Now, before we go ahead, one small point of reference. The idea is not to give people justification for
Exactly. As well.
behaving in the way they behave. Okay, so if you are having a fight with your wife, to say that I'm having a fight because my childhood was bad is not a justification.
No.
So you, if you start having a fight and you recognize that the fight is happening because of certain challenges that I've faced growing up, or even if you don't realize that, but once you know that you're having fights, and to some extent you would be contributing to those fights, right? The idea is for you to explore what we can do about it. So the reason why we are discussing all of this is not in the context where we are trying to justify behaviors of people, that because people are behaving today the way they are behaving,
Yeah.
there is a background reason, means that what they are doing today is excusable.
Yeah.
It gives you a context to help you understand them, so that if you need to help them, you know what direction you need to probably take to help them.
Right.
If you want to understand them, and you have a direction to understand them, but that does not justify or excuse their behavior.
So, excellent point. I think there is always a room for overcorrection, right? Our understanding does not take away the responsibility of action. Just because I have awareness on my trauma and the challenges or my beliefs that are there does not give me the luxury of, like, this is just me, मैं ऐसा ही हूं, is not a justification that you can give. You still have the responsibility to take action that will help you overcome these injuries, rather than just saying मैं मेरे हाथ ऐसे ही उठता है, नहीं.
Plus, I also brought this up because I've been speaking because of the nature of work that we do, where we are mentoring psychologists and coaches, and we get to hear a lot about what's also happening in their life, right? And one of the patterns that I've noticed is that there are many practicing psychologists who are stuck in a bad relationship because they try to justify the behavior of their partner to themselves, saying क्या मैं तो साइकोलॉजिस्ट हूँ, मुझे समझना पड़ेगा ना कि उसको तो बचपन में ट्रॉमा था तो वो मेरे को मारता तो मारता है, ट्रॉमा की वजह से मारता है.
So this, and Nitin, when if you were to even show them that, right, in every fight both of you have some responsibility, they will be like, but I haven't done anything, this is their mental health issue. No, boundary setting is also your responsibility.
Correct. So it's important both for you to not allow this to justify partner's behavior, nor does it take away your responsibility to take care of yourself and set the boundaries that you need to set for yourself. Right? So just be careful with this because we have a tendency to, at times, especially as psychologists, as people who are working in the area of mental health, because we work with clients, we understand the pain they are going through, the challenges they are going through. We try to extrapolate the same thing to what's happening with our partners, and then we try to overanalyze the partner's behavior into internalizing that source of the problem to us. कि यार मैं नहीं समझ पा रहा हूँ, उसको तो चाइल्डहुड प्रॉब्लम्स थी ना, मुझे थोड़ी ना है. आई शुड बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट. आपको नहीं है, बट यू शुड स्टिल बी एबल टू सेट दोस बाउंड्रीज.
Exactly.
And it's still the responsibility of your partner to be able to find ways of dealing with that. Okay? The result of that cannot be that they are coming and beating you.
Yes, exactly. So when we are talking about boundary setting, this comes under also the space of self compassion. And this, as Nitin was referring to, because of a lot, because psychologists, because even helpline workers for that matter, I feel can be very susceptible to this kind of an issue, where because you understand that the other person is going through high level psychological pain, it you try to become more the person's behavior, even if it is causing harm or long term harm to not just the relationship but even to you. And we are not able to address it that this is harm. And self compassion is not selfishness. Self compassion, if you are able to actively do it, essentially ensures that there is longevity in the act that you are a part of. If you are a support giver, right? If you do not look at meaningful boundary setting ways, you will either burn yourself out, compassion fatigue, different ways you will burn yourself out. However, if you are able to practice self compassion, what you will ensure is your role as a support giver can be much more long term. You are able to offer that support for a longer term, which is much more helpful for the person. Compassion without boundaries is just, I think, mindless altruism. This doesn't give you any points. There is no, you're not saving anyone, you're not helping anyone by being selfless, completely selfless. It can actually cause harm. And maybe Nitin, you may be able to add some more examples as well, where this can actually be more harmful, this complete access that one may end up giving without any boundaries.
So before that,
Yeah.
also the reason I've touched upon this is uh, because as practitioners, at times you need to go and seek help for these issues, right? And that boundary setting becomes an important part of therapy process that you will do for yourself. So, which is one part. And second is that it can obviously start influencing every area of your life, right? Once you see our mind is an incredibly powerful generalization machine, it likes to replicate patterns. So, the moment you allow your partner to get away with certain things, the mind starts realizing it's okay for people to get away with certain things. That behavior can get extrapolated to other relationships. And then all of a sudden, you are at the receiving end of most of the relationships that you are in, which then adds a lot more pressure to you. So please be careful about this. It's important to consider this. Now, coming back to what we were discussing earlier about childhood patterns. Sachin mentioned one example of his own experience. I'm giving you a few more quick examples to understand this. Let's say I was a child, my parents promised me that they will buy me a bicycle when I come first. I worked very hard. I came first in my school exam. Then the day came to give me the bicycle, and my parents forgot. I was really looking forward to the bicycle. What happens? What do I realize in my head? My parents committed to me about something and they forgot. I am not even important enough for them to remember this. And if I'm not even important enough for my parents, then how important would I be for other people? Or that I can't trust what my parents tell me. Now, if I can't trust what my parents tell me, how easy or difficult would it be for me to trust other people and other situations in my life? And then take something really basic, which happens in everyone's day-to-day life, right? Almost everyone's day-to-day life. You have a very small child crawling on the floor. Children love sharp, shiny objects. Sees a knife dropped on the floor. एक तो पहले वो knife floor पे करके आ रहा था. Anyways, so the child sees that knife, goes and picks it up. The mother or the father sees the knife and the child, and now they're scared. So they run and just snatch the knife away from the child. What does the child do? The child doesn't know that the knife is bad for me. If he knew or she knew, they wouldn't have picked up the knife. For them, the child likes something that the child picked up. My parents take away the things that I like. Now, if this happens repetitively, can you see the impact of why children would find it difficult to tell their parents what they like and what they dislike? These are all examples of small, small things that have happened in the childhood which impact the way we perceive life and we live life. One other example, because uh, this is something that happens that comes up in multiple therapy sessions. There are places where children get molested in their childhood. They don't know what's happened to them, but they know there's something wrong. So the first people they go and tell is if they have a decent relationship with their parents, is their mother or their father. The moment they say it to them, at times parents don't take this seriously enough. They don't realize what has happened, and they use this as an opportunity to teach the child something. For example, sometimes parents will end up telling the child, "ऐसे कपड़े पहनोगे तो और क्या होगा?" Now imagine what's happened to the child. Someone did something to me. I did not like it. I informed my mother or my father about it. They agreed it's wrong. And then they told me it's because I was wearing the clothes that I was wearing. So I'm responsible for it. Extension of this, if I dress well, if I look well, then I'm at risk. Now, growing up, would your mind want you to look well? Probably no. And then, would weight issues be one of the extensions that this could lead to? For many people, yes. And then you will have people coming and telling you, I'm trying everything I can to manage my weight, but I'm not able to manage my weight. Why? Because in that person's head, through those childhood experiences, this idea is fixated. I can't look good. And the irony is you don't even remember this. But in the back end, that idea is still playing out.
Hence, it is called the virus in this example as well, right?
Correct. So, one, childhood patterns influence your present and your future. We have shared enough examples to help you understand that. Not just the patterns that you remember. Many a times, patterns that you don't remember actually continue playing an important role in your life, right? Does that mean that every childhood pattern I need to address? The answer is probably no. That is a call that an expert practitioner can make when you're working with them. If you're not even an expert practitioner, there are processes where if those patterns emerge, you address them. If they don't emerge, you can probably work around them any which way. So, but can they influence? The answer is yes. Right? Sachin, anything else that you want to add before we end? I think we probably would continue this
Yeah, yeah,
into.
yeah. But I think it was quite relevant in terms of, uh, I think this objective understanding of what mental health is and how it is impacted is extremely, extremely important for any psychologist, any life coach, or anyone who's interested in being in this space. Otherwise, the easier tendency for any one of us is to end up flowing with whatever the person is saying, and our emotions get entangled in the same. And if we are emotionally, therapy or coaching or anything is out of the picture. So for me, I think one simple thing that helps me at handle such situations is if a person is talking to us straight away, nothing therapy or coaching does not start. First and foremost, we need to spend time in helping the person identify what is the problem statement or where the problem statement is. Usually it is not well thought of. So do not so you have to be open to getting your hands dirty in terms of helping the person reach somewhere in that form, to help them understand how that can look like, and being open to having these kind of conversations in a very genuine, authentic manner. And if you realize that right now the person is not necessarily talking through their thoughts, they are actually just ventilating what has happened and they are in a heightened state, focus more on active listening at that time to help the person ventilate. Once the person is ventilated enough and is open to, has the energy to still talk through their thoughts and beliefs, then enter that area. That is when you can actually get some work done with them. But making sure that you know the difference between these two, what is an emotional ventilation or what is coming as a reaction from the person, and where is the person now open to sharing their beliefs, thoughts vulnerably, and is now ready to work on that. So there's a big difference between these stages, and only through experience in understanding these areas will you be actually be able to help the person get to that level as well. So taking care of that, I think otherwise I'm very happy with our conversation today.
Super. And for those of you who may not know, the soft skill model that we have actually covers more or less the steps required that Sachin has spoken about right now, right? Starting from helping people define their problems, when you're helping them define the problems to actually understand whether they are objectively talking about their problem, and can you go ahead and help them create an objective definition of their problem, or whether they are currently just venting out, and while they are venting out, to be there to have the presence to allow them to feel safe so that they can express themselves, they can vent themselves, so that they can reach a stage where they can be relatively more objective, and then we can go into helping them define their problem clearly and specifically. And it contains everything else in terms of how you actually take it forward into identifying their triggers, identifying what thought patterns they have, changing those thought patterns, those beliefs, and places where past experiences need to be addressed. How to explore those experiences and address those experiences. All of that more or less gets covered in the soft skill
And
model.
I really recommend recommend the training as well from our side, someone who's experienced and gone through the training as well. I believe anyone who's entering this space for psychology as a psychologist or a counselor, teacher, trainer as well for that matter, having this type of basic understanding that Nitin helps through these trainings is extremely beneficial. So I'll recommend that to absolutely everyone, so please do check that out.
Thank you, Sachin. Thank you for sharing that. And before we end, a couple of small announcements for all of you. One, we recently did a video on the NCHP Act because there were a lot of confusions about the Act, and I had a lot of our students calling us up and asking us what is the status of our psychology degree, whether we can legally practice, we can't legally practice, what is the process for registration. So we have had a detailed recording on that. You will find it on the iCharts YouTube channel, where in a 45-minute conversation we have taken the act, we have broken the act down into how it impacts psychology students, all three, past, present, and future, right? And there are certain tips and recommendations on what you should keep in mind. Currently, now that the act is still in a draft phase. Second, in the coming week, uh, I don't yet know the date, but we will release one more video. There was a recent video on uh, there's a podcast that happens by the name of Team Tal, which gets released every Saturday, if I'm not wrong. It's a very popular podcast. It's a very interesting podcast. Something that I really enjoy listening to. But during one of the podcasts few weeks back, there was a discussion on that podcast related to mental health. And some of the things that were discussed on the podcast needs to be clarified from our point of view. And again, the reason why we are doing this particular podcast is because I had people who follow us, who have been trained by us, have heard that podcast and they've come back to us with a lot of queries and questions saying, Nitin, can you clarify this? So time to time, while there are regular podcasts that we do, one is with Sachin, one is with Remoticons, every Friday we have a Q&A. So these are our regular features. But if there is a particular conversation like this, a particular activity like this, on which you want us to do a podcast, let us know. Or you want us to do a recording or a video so that we can share our views on that, let us know, and I'll be happy to probably plan it in the coming days. But yes, the Teental one will get released soon. We are planning to have specific clips from Teental and talk about what was said in the video, what we agree with, what we disagree with, and the reasons why we agree or disagree with it. Right. Lastly, for those of you who don't know, we recently launched a mobile app called Meet Goals. It's available to download for free on both Android and Play Store. You just have to search for Meet Goals without space, and you'll be able to get access to that app. Some features on the app are paid, some are free, but the free features itself are quite comprehensive. So, for example, we have a complete module on you being able to identify what your current thoughts are and be able to restructure your thoughts so that you are able to change your thinking patterns related to specific triggers and associations. Very powerful when it comes to fears, when it comes to anger, when it comes to guilt. Also, there are certain guided meditations that are made available for free on the app. So please go ahead, download the app, and I look forward to hearing feedback from all of you on that app. Lastly, obviously, if you're a psychologist and if you have not yet done a course with us, it's time for you to visit the ICHARS website, check out the courses that we offer, and connect with us. I really look forward to seeing you all in one of our workshops soon. And if you're already a participant, then during our Q&A sessions on Friday. Thank you once again, Sachin. Anything else that you would like to add to
No,
the towards the end?
no, thank you so much. I double down on the recommendation. Please, if you haven't, then I'm asking you, what are you waiting for? Please join this at the earliest. On from the Connect Hut side as well, if you are interested in learning more around suicide prevention, around mental health, or being facilitators in this space at a very layman level, do look us up. We have communication trainings, active listening trainings, crisis intervention. So these are the areas that we focus a lot more on. So look us up, and you may be able to find quite a few interesting trainings for yourself there too. So thank you, Nitin, for having me over one more time, and we'll
Thank you, Sachin, and thank you everyone once again for those of you who watch the video right now or who will be watching the video going forward. Thank you. Bye bye. Take care. Good night.